cars. In that world, we have the Dodge Hellcats, Chargers, and Challengers, the Anacondas of Mopar. They're the most popular, the most powerful, and quite biggest of all. We also have the Mustangs and Camaros, the Pythons, if you will. Not as powerful as Dodges, but still packing a punch. But then we have an anomaly.
I need a Chrysler.
Chrysler.
300 Chrysler.
Y'all don't know about that 300 nigga.
Chryslers are so hot.
The classic 300 grill with the beautiful 300 Chrysler wings.
Get you a 300, bruh.
The Chrysler 300, the Viper of Mopars. It's often forgotten. It doesn't show itself that much, often stays under the sand. But when it spits its venom, it's a matter of seconds until the victim is under its spell. This is the full story of the Chrysler 300. June 6, 1925, Walter P. Chrysler created a company worth today $30.91 billion, the 656th most valuable company by market cap in the world. When you think of Chrysler, the atrocious PT Cruiser might come to mind, or the classic town and country minivans. But let's take a deep dive into the wild and look at one of Chrysler's best-selling models, the 300. 300 because of the 300 horsepower that it had in 1955, when the first C300 was introduced. The C300's aim was pure performance. It satisfied all the requirements for racing and NASCAR with its 5.4-liter firepower Hemi V8 engine. It was, in fact, the first American production car to reach a horsepower rating of 300. It was a submodel of the series C68 Chrysler New Yorker. In 1956, the second-gen Chrysler 300B was the first American car to produce 1 horsepower per cubic inch, beating Chevy by 1 year. One of the quirky options included was a built-in vinyl record player, the Highway Hi-Fi phonograph player. For 1957, the now-named 300C was heavily revised and adopted the classic trapezoidal grille unique to the 300. The Hemi engine was upgraded to a 6.4-liter for 375 horses, with 18 limited editions making 390 horsepower. These were sold for about $5,000 apiece. In 1958, the car was now the 300D and was the last year to use the firepower Hemi. This 58 period was harsh for the 300, with rough competition from the Ford Thunderbird and Mercury Park Lane. Only 800 300Ds were sold to customers. 1959. It was time for the 300E, which didn't receive that much love either. With its slightly higher price of $5,300, only 650 were sold. The 1960 300, the 300F, was dramatically changed. It moved to a whole new unibody platform, sharper styling, and new grille. The car now had 4 bucket seats, and the front seats swiveled. With a 18 units limited model making 400 horses, overall sales increased to about 1,200 for the year. And then in 1961, the 300G got another restyle, turning its grille upside down. Sales kept increasing to 1,600. For 1962, Chrysler introduced the Sport Series with the 300H. It was faster than previous models, but the loss of exclusivity made it a poor seller, with only 570 sold. For the 1963 model, Chrysler skipped the letter I and went straight to the 300J for some reason. Sales were still very poor, and only 400 were made. In 1964, the 300K made a splash and was a sales success. The price nearly dropped by $1,000. Sales surged to over 3,600. The 1965 300L was the final year of the letter series, and it went out with a banger. The appealing new styling brought 2,800 sales for the year. Everything seemed to be getting better for Chrysler, and the brand was definitely on the right track. The banker's muscle car was finally winning. But things would very shortly take an unexpected wrong turn. The development of the next generation, named the 300M, had begun in the 60s. Eventually, the development was canceled in 1964. In 1965, they tried again, but canceled once again. While the 300 non-letter series continued in the late 1960s to early 70s, the hype was just not there anymore. Until 30 years later, in 1999, when the 300 nameplate returned with finally the 300M, the ugliest thing ever. Now, as a front-wheel drive car with a 3.5-liter V6 making 255 horses, the huge grille was dropped as Dodge adopted that look from the 1980s. In 2002, a Pro M version was released with two-tone interiors. The 2004 model was its last, and quite frankly, thank God. But in 2005, Chrysler entirely revamped the 300 into a full-size car as a modern interpretation of the 1955 C300 and taking elements from the 1998 Chrysler Kronos concept. At that time, Chrysler was merged with Daimler AG, and many elements of the Mercedes E-Class and S-Class models were taken for the production of the brand new 300C. The SRT8 model had a 6.1-liter Hemi with 425 horsepower. Up until the 2010 model year, the car was well received and became an iconic throwback to big boy rear-wheel drive V8-powered American muscle beasts. In 2011, the last generation of the 300 was released. Exterior was cleaned up to look sleeker, and the SRT engine was expanded to 6.4 liters and 470 horses. In 2015, the car got a facelift with many new technologies, but sales worldwide still managed to erode. In 2022, Stellantis announced the 300 would be discontinued after the 2023 model year, marking the end of an era. But if the viper stays under the sand, it doesn't mean she's not hungry for more.
Once you get a check, they treat you like a boss, nigga. Blue honey stuck to me like glue, can't get them off, nigga. All they diamonds in the chains, man, this shit costs, nigga.
When Ralph Gilles, Stellantis' chief designer, created the 300C in 2005, he knew what he was doing. It was big, it was bold, chunky. It had the X-Factor hip-hop always loved in cars. When this car came out, it was very often compared to the Bentley Continental GT. The Chrysler was seen as the hood Bentley. Now, apparently, that wasn't Ralph's intention, but the result turned out the other way around. What he didn't know is that this car would solidify what it meant to be hood rich in the hip-hop world. The Chrysler 300 was everywhere. In 2011, Dr. Dre even made the commercial for the 300S. It represented a different facet of African-American life. The 300 phenomenon was injected everywhere in rap music videos. Everyone was customizing their 300s, changing out the rims, customizing them to the max. And that's what made it a pop culture icon. In the era of spinners and Cadillac Escalades, the hip-hop influence truly helped solidify the Chrysler 300 as a luxury nameplate in the automotive world. From MTV Cribs to midnight club dub games, the 300 really became a fashion accessory, not just a hood Bentley, but also representing what it means to have a flexing mentality. If you didn't have a Chrysler from 2005 to 2007, you wasn't popping out for real. And that's a fact. Z-Roz's old screw blue Chrysler was an icon. In the 2000s, Snoop Dogg was hired as a spokesperson to advertise Chryslers, a move that paid off as sales skyrocketed thanks to the rapper's patronage. As a token of gratitude, the company rewarded Snoop with a 2006 300C. Obviously, he didn't keep it stock. He lowered it, added chrome rims, blacked out taillights and windows, and the word dub plastered all over the windows and trunk. Let's not forget Matt Leischer's battle-weary 190,000-mile 06 SRT8 Chrysler that comes straight out of Mad Max. Even Barack Obama had a dark gray 2005 V8 300C sitting in the garage for a moment. 50 Cent, The Game, DMX, Kid Fresh, Nate Dogg, Manny Fresh, Eminem, Chingy, they all had it.
I'm spitting that Venom. That baby not real as I am. Send him a letter or kill him.
Okay then. Even though nowadays Dodge Hellcats are far more popular, more powerful, and more appealing cars to the market, if you didn't have the Chrysler brand, we'd never have the Dodge brand. Today, the Chrysler 300 SRT Hellcat swaps are the most attractive final step Chrysler versions. Some rather go all in muscle with the Challengers and Chargers. There's plenty of people, however, that like some luxury too. That's where the 300 comes into play. Next step is adding a Hellcat engine, Hellcat rims, Hellcat badges, and boom, you have a Chrysler Hellcat. Mr. Goddammit, Fast Life Nick, Shay V, Cal SRT, and SRT Len all Hellcatized their 300 because Chrysler sadly pulled the plug off the SRT 300. US Mopar fanatics have taken the matter into their own hands and wanted to be able to race against Dodge Hellcats while still whipping a hood Bentley, and there's nothing to blame them for.
Why you always act like you want me to come and jack you up? Never gonna be you against the world, cause I'ma back you up. You know where we stand at, bro, the cap ain't that.
From 1955 to today, Chrysler never did like everybody. When you say Chrysler, you think of brands like Saab or Rover. Brands that aren't very popular, not many people talking about them. But if you drive one and understand its history and magic, you quickly fall for their charm. That's what the 300 was all about. Being a big boy sedan that intimidates on the road, but still not as flashy and head-turning as its competitors. It's a more low-key, under-the-radar type of Mopar. While people's views on Mopars is a big argument starter, Chrysler never wanted beef with anyone. It's like the quiet kid in class that doesn't say a thing, but when you mess with him, he sticks out his fangs and lets the venom out, exactly like a viper. Just like the Gaboon Viper, the Chrysler 300 possesses a large, imposing figure. While the Viper hides itself in the leaves, the 300 hides itself in traffic. But when it's time to attack, they're both ready to destroy everything in front of them. So the next time you see a 300 on the road and you're in a Hellcat, don't get too ahead of yourself. There might be some venom hidden under that hood.